All right, here we go. We have Borelson right here on the Lens of Yashu. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Everything's blessed, no complaints.
I see you got a nice shirt right there to promote, the album and all that. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of days ago, I had, I guess, someone who supports my music who left a comment on Facebook, and then I just felt that the comment was really, heartfelt and beautiful, as a compliment about saying that my album is a masterpiece. So I decided to literally right away go and print that and put that on some merch. So that's what I did. So shout out to Joe for that comment, and then yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, man. Nah, likewise. Thank you for coming by, and great work by the way too. I've known you like for a while back too from the Drake shows, and just checking out all these other events too, and then just getting into your music. You had, as far as I can see, you had your debut mixtape back then when you were like in France and all that, and then recently Building Bridges. You just released that with like Fearless, which also includes a remix, the Blackest track with Chantel Rose, and everything else too. Even the Outsider's Victory, even though I don't know if it was still on the project, but that was also a dope track too.
Absolutely, thank you very much, man. We just keep it pushing and always try to innovate and elevate. So yeah.
Yeah, man. I just want to get it started right here too, since this is your first TLOI interview. So you were born in Gabon, that's correct?
Yes, exactly. I spent my formative years in Gabon and then Congo and France, and then after that, moved to Canada.
Yeah, exactly. So being, so you have Gabon roots and then Congolese roots.
Yes.
So what was the environment like for you growing up in Gabon and in Congo as well too, as well as your childhood? Would you say it was very good growing up, or would you say it was kind of different?
I mean, I was a little bit of mix of everything. I would say that culturally the good thing is that naturally having already two nationalities, Gabonese and Congolese, so naturally I'm already by default a Pan-African in the sense that I got two African cultures growing up, and then just being in Africa, it's places where we actually, I would say, consume a lot of things coming from outside, so then growing up in terms of cultural influences, it was a mix of already the Gabonese and the Congolese one, but also, culture coming from many other places from the continent or even from outside the African continent, right? So it was a very, I would say, diverse and multicultural environment I grew up in. And then from there, you just pick and choose naturally some stuff that resonates with you the most in terms of influence, and then you just decide to go there to follow these influences, right? So yeah.
No doubt. And I was actually reading about the history of Gabon while I was in the TDC before the interview, and it actually had an independence sometime in around the 1960s, but before that it was you had French colonizers, and then you had Portuguese settlers who founded first. So with the whole Gabon independence thing, did it have an effect on your family or anyone else growing up?
I don't know really about that, so my dad, my parents were definitely, alive and young during those independence days, but I guess, it was back then a synonym of potentially more opportunities and more freedom, if I can say it like that, right? So, and Congo actually also got its independence in 1960. It's actually a lot of African countries, and then you would see the influence of then foreign powers. So Gabon, it was French and Portuguese before that, and in Congo it was actually a mix of Belgium, a little bit of France, but mostly Belgium and the United States. So a side note or backstory is that there was the rumble in the jungle in 1974 in Congo. So that was the one of the greatest boxing events of the whole 20th century. That's what people say, right? And because it was Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, and my mom back then, she was actually still in Congo and working for the U.S. Embassy back then. So she was actually among the people that got a chance to meet Muhammad Ali. And I would say during those years, right, so after the independence, you will see actually, yeah, a lot of influence, from like the American culture in Congo. It's like even in terms of currency, you could actually use US dollars. To this day, you can actually use US dollars in Congo sometimes when you want to pay stuff. So, and then yeah, that influence, I guess that was part of also, my influences growing up, in terms of culture, in terms of sound. So, yeah, man, that's what I can share about that.
Nah, likewise, an interesting history, by the way, too, and, African culture, it's like one of the most popular things, like, throughout the world, like, especially, like, now with Nollywood, with Afrobeats music, with
Yeah.
music coming from, like, other regions, like South Africa,
Absolutely.
Ghana, and, even for you, like, Congo
Yeah.
and Gabon, like, so do you
Yeah.
feel like the culture and the media presence back there was much more prevalent in reaching worldwide back then, as opposed to, like, what it is, like, right now?
I mean, I would say, culture, there's culture shift happening on a regular basis, and it's interesting to see where, for instance, during again the 60s, after the independence days and 60s and even 70s, right? So Congo was actually literally the country that was having a huge influence across the continent. So when it comes to like especially music, it was really those Congolese musicians that really were influencing a lot of movements in Africa. Like now, today you would see more, like you said, like Afrobeat and things like that. But back then, it's definitely Congolese music that was the sound of Africa. So, and all of that, yeah, again, growing up there, I was definitely in an environment where I was feeling and witnessing, the power that the Congolese culture had across the continent. And then also seeing other cultures and all the sounds growing and taking more power and becoming more important. And to me, at the end of the day, I see myself as a Pan-African. So to me, I just embrace anything that I feel is black as a whole, and always try to really be a bridge between all those cultures and sound, and even I would say places and people. So yeah, that definitely influenced